Welcome to the Leader's Edge, where we celebrate leadership and shine a light on the visionary leaders that are shaping our future. Hey, I'm HR Huntsman. I'm the founder of Leader's Edge, creator of the Leader's Edge Performance Engine and Leader's Edge University. I am thrilled to bring you stories from leaders who are making a difference around the world. In each episode, we champion the innovative strategies, courageous decisions, and inspiring journeys of those who lead with purpose and passion. So whether you're looking to refine your leadership skills or simply want to be inspired, my friends, you are in the right place. Today, we're bringing the heat with none other than Tracy Davis. She's the founder and CEO of TRAX Analytics. She's the visionary force behind the award-winning smart restroom platform that's been featured everywhere from the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal, and even named one of USA Today's top 10 airport amenities. If you travel, you may not know it, but you're the beneficiary of her hard work. Tracy isn't just transforming airports. She's a serial entrepreneur, a business coach, and a community builder who co-founded Mind and Social to help new entrepreneurs launch and scale their dreams. As if that's not enough, she's also a proud member of the Forbes Technology Council and one of the most dynamic leaders you will ever meet. I loved my conversation with Tracy. From solving complex problems to building unstoppable teams, Tracy thrives on breaking barriers and inspiring the next generation of leaders. And today, she's here to share the laughs, the lessons, and the leadership insights that only come from someone who is living it out. In today's episode, we're going to explore how confidence comes from preparation, why learning to be a storyteller is important for change, and why some relationships are seasonal for the growing leader. So get ready for an insightful, inspiring conversation with the one and only Tracy Davis. Tracy, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor.
Every time I talk to, interview, work with entrepreneurs and investors, I'm always curious about that spark. What went on in your brain when you thought to yourself, there might be something here? Tell me about that.
Yeah, who would have thought bathrooms would have been my life now?
Right? Right?
Yeah, so a little bit about my background, how it started. I grew up in the aviation industry, so I've worked with, over 100 different airports through my family business. And I was sitting down with an airport at the time, and they gave me this problem statement that they didn't know when to clean their bathrooms. And I started to lose sleep because, it's such a simple problem in my head. How do you not know when to clean? You get planes off the ground. And so we went to the drawing board and came up with a technology solution to really create this data-driven approach to cleaning. And I just started to lose sleep over it and just wanted to refine it. And sure enough, they bought it, and here we are today.
Yeah, you and I both know there's a lot more to it than that. So I'd love to hear some of the background. You and I talked before about the influence of your dad and growing up in that industry. Tell me about your childhood. What did you learn about entrepreneurship, leadership that helped build you into the dynamo you are today?
Thank you. Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I come from family business. So, I've learned a lot. My grandfather started our family firm back in 1970,
Wow.
and my father carried that on. And my brother is currently the president of the company now. And so, growing up in the technology world, I saw my father just lead with such grace, but also he had to pivot so often. As a small business, when the market changes, you've got to figure out how to capture it or what to do to, get with the times on certain aspects of it. So I really learned that ability to dance, I like to call it, to be flexible, to pivot. And I was surrounded by that spirit of entrepreneurship since I was a kid. Just from my father, my grandfather, and just learning from them, looking up to them, and being surrounded by technology. I was taking apart computers and putting them back together when I was a kid, and my brother is a full stack developer, so I saw him reading, coding books since he was, 11 years old. So it's really
Wow.
in my blood.
Wow. So I'm curious about when you decided, so you have this idea of coding this, what eventually becomes tracks.
Mm.
But I'm always curious about that leadership journey when you decided to go away from the family business and start your own deal. You're going to jump out of the nest on your own. What did that feel like?
Terrifying.
Yeah,
I think candidly when I was in my, 20s, I had that, you've got that bullheadedness in your 20s where you're
sure,
invincible,
for
right?
sure.
So you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's actually a strength for entrepreneurs because if I knew what I know now in my 20s, who knows if I would have started tracks, right? Um,
Right?
but when you're younger, there isn't a challenge big enough. You can take on the world. You don't even think that there's failure as an option. And so when I started Trax, I spun it out of the company in 2019.
Right.
And I really had to find myself as a leader because I was in my, mid 20s at the time, and I had to grow a team from the ground up. I had to figure out how to scale it, how to get the product redeveloped for scale, because we, had initial beta version that was not going to be able to support, future growth, and really just figuring it out. And it was overwhelming at times. There were times when, I didn't know the answers and I just kind of faked it until I made it. But I think I'm really blessed because I've always had the support of my family around me. So if I needed support, just I could throw, questions at them, I could lean on them, I could get some guidance from them. Meanwhile, I was pretty stubborn and independent. So I think that helped out a lot too.
I started my first company when I was 28, and like you said, I had vision and passion and nothing else. Like I didn't know anything about anything.
Yep. And if you did, you probably wouldn't have
You
started. That's
probably
why
wouldn't start it. Yeah, you don't have like the scar tissue we have now.
it was a war
Let's
move.
let's talk about that transition from entrepreneur to leader. You just alluded to it about scaling and developing leaders. It's one thing to write code, it's
Mhm.
another thing to build a team.
Yes.
Tell me about your transitions there. This is the stuff I'm most fascinated about when I coach all these teams all over the country is from producer to leader of humans. Tell me about that journey for you.
Yeah, candidly, it's been up and down. I've had some great successes, and then I've had some moments where I looked back and said I could have done better. I
Okay.
think you really find yourself through that journey. A part of being an entrepreneur is that you're also evolving alongside your company. So
Right.
as your company evolves, you're forced to evolve further and to grow into new chapters. And leadership is one of those things that you have to keep refining. And I think early on, I had to find myself a little bit. I was, in my mid 20s. I was too ashamed for people to know my age because I was in industry
Um,
like aviation, which is, a good old boys club. Everyone that I was selling to or working for were, in their 60s at the time. And so here comes a 26-year-old punk trying to sell you the world. And, you gotta, so I carried that where I didn't want to tell people my age. I wanted to make sure I always presented myself, to a level where they would never question my
sure.
authority or my knowledge. And the longer I grew and through that leadership journey, the more and more authentic I became, where, I stepped into, I need to be who I am, which is all of those things, but I don't need to be so worried about people questioning. And if they question, I know I'm going to combat it. I know I'm going to shake it up and I'm going to shock them regardless. So I think as from a frontline facing, I've really stepped into more authenticity. And as a leader, I've really had to find that balance between empathy for my team and just doing what's best for the business. And I think as a leader, it's a fine line to balance because you can't make everybody happy. And when you're naturally an empathetic person, like I think of myself to be, it's kind of hard sometimes to, you want to make your team happy and do what's best for them, but you've got a large team and not everyone is going to see the vision the way that you see it or understand the decisions that you're making for a bigger purpose. And you've got to be okay with that and trust yourself along that journey. So those are a few parts of the evolution. I could go on and on and on.
There's so much there, Tracy, that all of us as leaders and entrepreneurs have faced. I'd like to dig in at that imposter syndrome piece a little bit. We all fight it. I'm 60 still today. There are times like, am I ready to play at that level?
Yep.
I'm curious how you, 26, in front of these 60-year-old old boy network, how did you combat that imposter syndrome and develop a more authentic voice as you grow into yourself? Teach us how you fight against imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so the way that I'm wired, if I'm equipped with data and knowledge and do the hard work and the homework before those
Right.
meetings,
Yeah.
I feel more equipped to stand up toe to toe. It's the moments where I didn't show up prepared or where maybe I was insecure at the time. Those were the moments where you could see through it. I think I had to learn that if I was going to show up and stand tall and wear my heels and look them in the eye, even as a 26-year-old, I needed to not only believe in my business and my mission, but I needed to know the data to support it. I needed to know the value we were bringing. I had to do all of that homework so that I could confidently and eloquently, tell our story versus fumbling around and trying to make them believe in something that I might have been nervous about in the beginning. So I really had to do the homework there. And then on top of that, it's a lot of self-growth. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to put in the hard work to grow yourself. And those are, I mean, in my opinion, what's going to define successful entrepreneurs to not are the people that are willing to do that hard work internally as well as externally and finding that confidence and learning how to believe in yourself. It takes a lot of work, but it's so worth it. And then now you can speak authentically. If someone disagrees with me, I still know we're on the right path. It doesn't shake me as much.
Good. I wrote a note. Confidence comes from preparation. Your
Mhm.
confidence came from putting in the hard work beforehand. Yeah,
Absolutely.
very good. Tell me about you alluded to the internal hard work. So it's not just preparing the data and getting your stuff down and your presentation notes and your decks. And tell me about the work you did internally to become this emerging leader that we're seeing.
Yeah, so I think it's several aspects of it. There are fun exercises that I did where, I would stare in the mirror and look at myself and actually pitch to myself or present to myself, right? Just to feel that confidence and to see what other people were seeing. But I'm a big proponent of meditation. That's something that's really
Okay.
grounded me over, I mean, the
Nice.
past 5 years specifically. But I grounded into that. So finding that peace in silence, finding that peace when things are chaotic, but going inwards to find that steadiness. I really learned how to master that. So deep breathing, learning that, hey, things might feel chaotic or I might not feel like I can show up today. But if I can just sit for 10 minutes and deep breathe through that, the outcome of that is I feel 10 times better and I'm back to being able to sprint the way that I could before.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Talk to us about the early rollout. So you have this brilliant idea, this spark is going on. You admit it, I'm stubborn, I'm ferocious, what were the early rollouts like? Did you get a bloody nose? You get punched in the face? And how'd you respond?
Yeah, so the earliest days, my brother developed the first version of it for me.
Right.
So I spit out this vision of this product. I was getting the use cases, talking to the potential buyers, and my brother was in the back coding this and making it something tangible. And I remember the early days, it was me and him. I didn't have anybody, right? So I was going on site to airports. I was installing the equipment myself on ladders. I was in the back room configuring it. My brother was on the phone. I'm literally walking in and out of bathrooms. He's on the phone and I'm saying, "Hey, can you see me now? Do you see me walking in now?" And passengers are, of course, freaking out. Like, who is and and he was watching her, right? But I did all of that, and so I would install till 3 in the morning, test it, get it off the ground, go back to a hotel, sleep for a few hours, put on a suit, go train the airport, and in the early days, if something broke, a lot of the time, you didn't want anybody to know, right? You just if something went offline, I would fly to the airport, I would go get it back online and then fly back and just to keep that momentum going. And we continue to improve. And of course, the product is completely different now. The hardware is different. But those early days, you did everything and you just kind of had to wear all of the hats and, grin and bear through it.
Goodness. So for those listening or watching this who may not know exactly what you do, what exactly is TRAX Analytics?
On the back.
They're hearing you go in the bathroom and setting up equipment and asking your brother, can you see me? What the heck are we talking about?
That is a good point. We probably should have. Their HR. So we have a janitorial management platform. It's a software solution that automates the cleaning process for venues nationwide. So what that looks like is we might monitor how many people are using a bathroom, or now it's facility-wide, any area in a building. We monitor the feedback. We know the locations of the janitorial staff, and we provide mobile apps, and they get real-time information to let them know when to clean, what to clean, how to clean, and all of the data stored for analysis for operational improvement. So it's a little bit of a snapshot. It's much bigger than that, but we don't have all day.
So I'm sure you get all kinds of questions about privacy issues. What's the intersection between all this data collection, all the stuff that you need to be efficient, and us walking in the bathroom, maintaining our privacy? How does that work?
So we are not, there's no cameras filming you in the
Right,
bathroom. There's nothing like that. I want to make
right.
sure that's very clear. Uh,
Absolutely.
What we're doing is we're really monitoring data sets like inventory levels of paper towel and toilet paper. We're monitoring just foot traffic going in and out. We don't even see, it's just a dot crossing a line. It is very secure, very private. It's all anonymous. All we're doing is collecting data just so that the experience of the guest is top notch. There's nothing worse than going into a restroom or any environment that's dirty, paper on the floor, your toilet paper is out. We're giving empowerment to that front line to get ahead of that before you have a poor experience. But it's all anonymous. We don't see anything. It is really just ones and zeros coming into a platform.
Perfect. Yeah, I wanted to clear that out for our listener.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
you're
the last thing I need people to
I
know.
know, right? Okay, so you're saving the airports tons of money. They're more efficient. The janitorial staff is getting there when it needs to be clean. Our experience is better. All the supplies are done. You monitor paper towels, soap, toilet paper, everything, right?
Yep.
Soup to nuts. Let's talk about change.
Mhm.
I know full well that change is hard for people.
Yes.
So here comes this young lady with this great idea, but how are you going to save me $1 million a year? I don't know what it actually is by monitoring my toilet paper usage. What were the biggest mental obstacles that you came up with in presenting this change idea, either to top level staff, C suite, or to the people on the ground actually changing out the toilet paper and the soap?
Yeah. So funny enough, the top line, the executive teams, they were the easiest part of the sale.
I believe
They
that.
immediately saw the value in the data. They knew that they were going to be able to find an ROI tied to labor and inventory.
Yep.
Their quality control was going to go up. All of that was a very easy to understand. I think the challenging part is when you're asking people who are often doing a thankless job to do something else. And, they're used to using paper. They're used to, their day-to-day is checking off a sheet or signing their name on the back of a door. Now we're asking to implement some level of technology.
Yeah.
So we had to really navigate that conversation. We had to make sure that not only was the software really easy to use so that it was intuitive, 3 clicks to get through their process, it wasn't going to slow them down. But we also had to make sure that they felt comfortable because it is an operational change and it's another step in their journey. And so navigating that conversation, we'd often have teams that would go shadow and do training on site with the janitorial teams to make them feel confident and comfortable. We implemented multilingual aspects to it so that they weren't struggling to read a different language. There are a lot of aspects, but I would say that frontline was the biggest challenge, and we had to, whiteboard and sit in a room together with all the brains behind it to figure out a way to make sure that that implementation and that change management was seamless across the board.
I was assuming this is where the biggest bottleneck was going to be. We work with a lot of construction companies, civil engineers who are now moving to technology in the field, right? Guys used to fill out when they did oil changes and tire change, and now it's all, data driven on their cell phones and laptops. And so now you're becoming a teaching organization to bring this change about. You are having to develop, like, how do I teach this well? Talk to me about that mindset shift for you and your organization. We're not just a coding company anymore. We have to teach this well. How did that change you?
Yeah, so I had to learn a lot, right?
I
So my
bet.
background was, a product and software consulting and
Right.
No, the innovation side of it, it wasn't until I brought on one of our partners who came from owning a janitorial management company. So he brought in that wealth of knowledge. He's our COO and business partner now. Brought in that knowledge base of how to really manage the labor side and to speak the same language because we naturally saw a dissect, a divide where we were communicating in a tech language and we needed to speak in a different type of language
Right.
entirely, actually
Right.
operationally driven.
Yes.
So he brought in that knowledge, and that had to actually shake up the organization a bit. And we're still evolving where we don't need to use the words like data integration. We can just say that you're going to receive the data. We don't have to use very tech lingo to people who are managing an operation and they have other priorities. The tech is a small component to them.
Right.
So we evolved in that. I had to evolve in my thinking in the way that I communicated our product. It turned into more storytelling and value adds versus functionality and features. So we had to really tell the story
Okay.
of how it's going to improve their day to day and why it's important and the outcomes of the usage and less about, hey, these are the fun 5 features you're going to get with a software platform. So we had to really pivot during that, the 5 or 6 years now in business.
I love this. The note I just wrote down is to make change happen, you have to learn to be a storyteller.
You
Yeah,
do. Big
very
part.
good. One thing I've learned, I've been around leaders for the last 30 years, started my own companies, worked with dozens and dozens of amazing, high performing leaders. I've interviewed so many on this show, and I've picked up some themes along the way. And I'm curious to see if how you overlay these themes. One of the themes is that high performing people, they love to push their edges. They rarely get comfortable. They're always pushing themselves. And probably closely related is they volunteer for discomfort. They'll run marathons or do ice baths or like I'm for my 60th birthday, I'm doing a Spartan race in a couple weeks. So always finding things that are hard and uncomfortable and often painful. Are you like that? Do you resonate with that?
I do. It's
Tell
one of the
me
sick pleasures, right? No,
if you're listening to this on a podcast, her face just lit up like, oh, I can't wait to tell how I'm putting myself through pain.
no, it's true though. I once heard a quote where one of the things that defines a successful entrepreneur is how much pain they're willing to take and that they can.
Right.
And I think it's true. My go-to is I'm a big backpacker and hiker, and so
Um,
I'm always trying to push the limits there of just how long I can go, how much weight I can carry, all of those things. But I think it's oftentimes of can I push myself to get up earlier? Can I push myself to start working faster and more efficient? I'm always trying to grow from a internally ways that I can improve with the team, the product, ways I can market better. I mean, you never sit still. And so I think there's different pain points professionally and then personally. But I would say my go-to right now is the backpacking hiking side of things to see how much the distance I can go.
I knew I liked you a lot. I'm an avid backpacker and climber.
Ah,
My claim to fame is a 30-day solo 500-mile trip from Canada to mid-Oregon. Tell me about your greatest trip so far.
oh my gosh. Oh, that is so hard. We're now mixing it up. So I used to do a lot of backpacking on the Appalachian Trail. So I'm here in Georgia. So
Right.
we're very
Perfect.
lucky to have the AT start here. So
Perfect.
I've done a lot of hiking there. And then we just recently purchased a van camper. And so we're now planning trips that are going to be long distance trips to hit every national park and then to make sure that we backpack through every national park across the nation. So that's our current goal, my current own, initiative. We're starting out this year, and we've already hit about 6 so far. So
Wow. Good for you.
we'll see how well it goes. Fingers crossed.
Speaking of pushing edges and not resting on your laurels, you've now co-founded Mind and Social. What is that all about?
Yeah, so I mean, I know you can resonate with this. Growing a company, especially a fast-paced, high-growth technology company in our stance, it comes with a lot of scars and a lot of wounds. You learn a
Yeah.
lot of hard lessons, some that could have been avoided if you had the right guidance, some that you just needed to learn the hard way. And I went through a period of that evolution where it was extremely lonely for me. I didn't have a lot of support that I needed or that I knew I needed. And I was in that phase where I wanted to do it all myself. I wanted to figure it out versus leaning on, strong people who could have helped guide. And that's not the way to do it. And I learned that. And so I co-founded Mind and Social with my partner to really help create not only a community for high achieving executives and entrepreneurs, but also to offer consulting and business coaching and business resources and a podcast as well to really just give them those insights, the honest truth about entrepreneurship, because it's often a buzzword. People use it, throw it around. But what it's really like, the hard parts, ways to navigate through challenges, and then creating a community where we host events for people to really lean on each other and grow together. So it's been a fun passion project.
I love this so much. This is exactly why I started Leader's Edge in my retirement years to give back. I struggled so much in my early 20s and 30s as an entrepreneur. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have anybody around me. I didn't grow up in any kind of leadership culture. I knew I wanted to give back and invest in young leaders. I can't applaud you enough, Tracy, for doing this. We need more leaders like you. Thank you for giving back.
Oh, I appreciate that. I've gone through a lot where I was taken advantage of.
Uh,
I've been, through the whole process. When you don't have that, I don't know, the years of experience that you do
right,
now.
right.
The foresight is 2020, hindsight 2020, but the decisions I made then I wouldn't make now, but I'm so grateful for each and every one of them.
Sure.
It's made me who I am today, but I definitely want to help ease that journey for other people,
Yeah.
especially women, and my partner is Hispanic. And so we're very passionate about the women's community, the Hispanic community,
Nice.
and just helping navigate that for
I
everyone.
resonate with that so much. Yeah. Like you said, I have tons of scars from the stupid things I did and said, but I wouldn't take them back. They're part of my journey, right? They're part of your journey. They help you become who you are. But I agree, giving back to the next generation is the right thing to do. So I applaud you for that.
Yeah, I
Let,
appreciate that.
let's finish with this. You're a high power, amazing young lady, proud of what you're building. You're moving into that mentoring piece. So let's imagine you're talking to a young lady just coming out of college or wants to be an entrepreneur, and you know how freaking hard this is. And she or that young man, they just have stars in their eyes. I'm going to be free. I'm going to make all this money and time freedom and all the things that we can believe early on. What piece of advice would you give that young lady or that young man just starting their career to help set them up for success?
Yeah, there's two pieces that stand out. One is that it's nothing is an overnight success. So what's going to define you is how long you're willing to endure that challenge and that pain. And I said that earlier, but you're going to go through scenarios that you can't even predict now, but it's the people and the founders that are willing to go through the fire over and over and over again and stand back up every single day. That's what's going to define if your business is going to be successful. You just have to keep standing up. Even if you don't know the right answer, you just have to keep standing up.
So good.
And the other piece is something that I've recently had to go through, which is not everyone in your current chapter is meant for your next chapter. And I've actually had to coach a lot of entrepreneurs that are going through this right now, where as they start to excel and they're high performing, their circles change. The people around them might not resonate with who they are anymore. Their friends change. Family might not understand what they're doing and the sacrifices they're making, and it's okay. And it's okay. And just to understand that, there's different chapters in life, and who's in your current chapter might not be meant for the next chapter, and they might come around in a future chapter. But you have to be okay for that evolution and to just trust that what you're doing is right for yourself.
That last piece is so true and so rarely talked about. I think we all experience that. How have you adjusted to the realization that not all relationships are they're seasonal. Some people are for a time, and that can be painful to both parties of that.
Absolutely.
How have you navigated that? That is a painful part of growth for sure.
It is it is a painful part. And, I've gone through it several times. And I think,
Yeah.
it gets, I don't want to say easier because it's not an easier scenario, but you're more self-aware of what's happening and you're more knowledgeable about what's happening. And I think you get more confident in it. Um, it was a challenge when it first started because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why people around me didn't know, they looked at what I was doing as work, where I'm looking at this as this is my life. This is my
Right.
baby, right?
Right.
Um, and so the priorities around this is not the way that it would be if I just had a normal 9 to 5 in a corporate environment. I'm giving everything I have, my house, everything is put into the business,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I started to realize that not everyone can understand that. And it's not my job to force them to or make them to, I I had to just accept that. And then I started to realize that the more I stepped into my own and the more that I got comfortable with the decisions I was making, my priorities, that, I'm a spiritual person, but the universe, God, whoever you believe in, if you believe in anything, there are always going to be people that are going to be drawn to you at the right time. And I saw that time and time again that when I saw, changes in relationships, the next chapter I saw tenfold where I had a new circle around me that was supportive, that understood what I was going through, that could really resonate. And it just keeps growing and getting better. You just have to have that faith that it is going to be okay and that the right people are going to come into your life at the right time.
This is absolute gold. Like I said before, very few people talk about this part of entrepreneurship. It's absolutely true. I think we've all experienced it, those of them trying to grow something significant. Tracy, I can't thank you so much for your time. You are a joy. You are a
Thank
bright light.
you so much.
I'm honored that you would spend time on my show, and I look forward to continuing our conversation together.
Thank you so much for the time. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
That's it for today's episode of The Leader's Edge. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope today's conversation with Tracy inspired you to lead with even greater purpose and passion. She certainly inspired me. I think she's an amazing young lady, and I'm excited to continue our journey together. Here are my three big takeaways from my conversation with Tracy. Number one, I love when she said it again and again when we were talking about entrepreneurship and how hard it is. She said, just stand up. It's going to knock you down. It's going to beat you up. It's going to give you a bloody lip. Leadership and entrepreneurship is hard. You're going to get knocked down no matter how you feel. Just get back up. Number two, I love this so much. If you want to create change, learn to be a storyteller. Tracy talked about going into the frontline people who are cleaning the restroom and changing all the supplies out, and they're not interested in data and ROI and analytics. They needed to hear the story, how this is going to make their life better. Change is far more than just presenting data or analytics. It's convincing everyone along the change lattice how this change is going to make their lives better, and that means becoming a great storyteller. I think that is great advice for all of us in leadership. We preach that everywhere we go. And number three, I don't hear a lot of leaders say this. I've certainly found this one to be true myself, and I am so glad that Tracy brought it out. Relationships are seasonal. Not everyone who begins the journey with you will continue the journey with you. This is rarely talked about. The reality of growth is some relationships are seasonal. They were here to bless you for a while and you're to bless them, but not everyone is going to grow the entire journey with you. That is gold. Listen, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. I'd love a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more leaders like you, and that's the entire reason for this show, is to make an impact across leaders, because leaders change the world. Please stay connected with us on social media for behind-the-scenes content, leadership insights, and updates on future episodes. Check us out at yourleadersedge.com and follow us at Leaders Ed Podcast on all major platforms. Until next time, keep pushing your boundaries, keep leading at the edge. I'm HR Huntsman. I'll see you soon.